morning, everyone. This is Kathy Mason from MasonWorks Marketing here on Conscious Business Zone with my friend Leonard Perlmutter, who's also Ram Lev. I want to say Levy, but Lev. So Leonard, welcome back.
Thank you, Kathy. It's so wonderful to see you.
Yes. Well, I'm excited to talk about your fourth annual Conscious Month and what wonderful things happen with that. But first, if people haven't ever been introduced to you before, could you talk a little bit about your incredible dedication to your journey and to the teachings of yoga and breath work and your whole incredible devotion to helping humanity change? Could you talk a little bit about that first?
Sure, I'd be happy to. My teacher was a wonderful sage from India who came to the United States under the instruction of his teacher, of his guru, with the instruction that he plants seeds in the consciousness of Americans to enable them to unite and bring together Eastern philosophy and Western medical practice. And that was his mission. During his lifetime, he started a wonderful hospital, a medical school, a school of nursing.
Wow.
In the high Himalayas where there had been nothing before. And in 1996, he sent me a note, and the only words on the note were "Start teaching now."
Wow.
And I was not born into this tradition, into this lineage. And I was taken back. I was kind of shy and didn't know if I had the authority to teach, although I did have the instruction from someone that I respected greatly. And so I contemplated, what could I teach with authority? And the only thing that I felt that I could teach from authority was what I practiced. So I put together a curriculum of what I practice. Turned out to be a 6-week course called AMI Meditation, the foundation course. And we've been teaching that since 1996. And it's just been a very rewarding trip. We teach a lot of physicians. In fact, every year we have an annual physicians conference. We are planning next year's already. It will be in October of 2023 in Vermont, where we have all physicians and healthcare providers come together. But it's not just for the docs, just average people of all walks of life, profession and non-professional people are learning this teaching, are working with it. It's a very practical teaching that enables us to be self-confident, to be self-reliant, and to base our outer actions on our inner wisdom, rather than just listen exclusively to the suggestions from the culture. Not that the culture is always wrong, but neither is the culture always right. And we have to pick and choose for each of us what is appropriate, what should be done, what should not be done.
Well, what's really amazing is what you're doing is you're empowering people. The consciousness of the world has been in the past, well, historically based on victimization.
Mm-hmm.
And what you're doing is you're helping people, which I want to salute you and congratulate you and honor your contribution to this, because it's so important for us to be able to take the reins back and control our own destiny by controlling our thoughts, because the thoughts that are creating the distortion of not being powerful, not making a difference, not having a voice, all of those things, they're wrong. Well, it was something to experience, but we don't have to experience it anymore, correct?
Well, if we see it as a teaching, and that's the beauty of this life, that all of the material world is filled with what I call pairs of opposites. So you have up and down and black and white, things like that. And the only way that we can know what up is to know what down is. The
Uh,
only way that we can know really what black is to know white side by side. And so, very often, many of our best teachers are teaching us what not to do,
right,
how
right.
not to act in the world. Now, the challenge for us is that we're inclined to criticize those people rather than be grateful to them for letting us know that you might be looking at me, they say, and I'm doing this unskillful action in the world. I'm doing things that nobody really should be doing, but I'm doing it so that you can see the painful consequences that come from this type of action. So that's why I tell every student who comes to me, I don't want you to believe a word I say. My job simply is to present the teaching and, as best as I can, to motivate my students to experiment with what they learn,
Perfect.
experiment with it. And
Mhm.
they can even wear a doubting Thomas hat and be an objective observer, a scientist, a yoga scientist, to determine for yourself the thought to think, the word to speak, and the action to take. That's going to enable you to fulfill the purpose of your life without pain, without misery, without bondage.
Perfect. Perfect. So when we talk about suffering being optional,
Mhm.
which is what you basically are saying, but you have to find the path to that, because there's so many programs that your subconscious has adapted, it has thought was the lens to look at life through, that need to be examined and to decide whether you want to keep them or not. And most of them I haven't wanted to keep. But I'm wondering, in your estimation, what is the hardest thing about I want to say the Westerner, because it's not just the US, but our lack of discipline. Um, well, I think this is a discipline where you wake up every morning and you meditate, or you do some sort of prayer. You do something that connects you to your spiritual compass, and then you may even have to do it several times during the day if there's a stressful time, because these are stressful times and there's a lot coming at us. But what is it about some cultures? I would gather that they're more disciplined than we are. Could you talk about discipline a little bit?
Yes, discipline is an essential ingredient in experiencing happiness, health, and security. The major challenge, Kathy, in my experience, is that every one of us living in this culture, and it's not just this culture of this country, but this general culture that uh, most of humanity is influenced by. Language language can be very, very triggering and oppressive. just words, as you say, have power, huge amount of power. And one of the most important and powerful words in our language is discipline. And how does the culture define discipline that makes it so powerful? The culture defines discipline as some form of denial of
Oh.
some pleasant experience.
Mm.
And the ego does not like that. The ego is looking for something that's pleasant and attractive and comfortable and familiar. And the senses want sense gratification of sight and smell and taste and hearing and touch. And of course, the unconscious mind, the storehouse of all of our memories, it runs against our unconscious forces and unconscious concepts, like the concept of what discipline means, denial. Those unconscious concepts are a million times more powerful than good intention.
Oh.
But if we examine the concept of discipline, what does it really mean? It means that I, this individual, am in the process, the objective process of examining my mind and discovering certain faulty concepts that, when used by me, always brings me pain.
Oh, wow.
And if I can learn to discipline the ego, the senses, and the unconscious mind to let go of those debilitating, faulty concepts that only bring me pain and motivate me to cause pain, if I can self discipline myself to let those go and simply act in service to the inner wisdom that is within me, that is me, having this human experience, life can become poetry and song.
Wow, beautiful. Beautiful. So, my friend Lizzie says it's not as much about discipline, but about a way of life.
Yes.
She's in England. Yes, I think that's what the challenge is. The outside chaotic stimuli with the phones and always having to be near something really changes the concept of self and connection to self and connection to the planet. I mean, a lot of what the meditation work that I've done connected me to earth. It was this very grounding, loving, symbiotic energy, which these devices isn't that to me. To me, this is like, oh, what am I missing? Oh, what am I missing? Oh, else do I need to know? Which, you know,
And where do I look for all of this? I look outside of myself,
right,
and I'm being trained by the culture to look outside of myself. This creates a great sense of lack in
right.
the individual and a dependence on looking for every answer, every pot of gold, so to speak, outside of me.
Yes,
And the biggest addiction that the vast, vast, vast preponderance of humanity is dealing with is the addiction to thought waves that lead outside. There are two types of thought waves: those that lead outside into the world, and thought waves that lead inside to the core of our being, to that intuitive library of wisdom that has the perfect answer for every lifestyle choice.
wow, that's perfect. Yes, and there isn't a constant questioning when you get to that inner guidance, that inner compass. In fact, what it does is it regenerates your energy. A lot of times I'll do a 10-minute or 15-minute meditation in the afternoon before, in between meetings or in between projects. And it's like a cup of coffee. It's like caffeine. It's and it's free. I don't have to have a device or anything with me. I can just go to that centering. So back to discipline, I wanted to also add focus, because I think the reason people aren't fulfilling their life mission is a lack of clarity and focus. Could you talk about how your meditation practice and how your whole foundation is dedicated to that inner knowing and clarity? Could you talk about clarity? Because discipline is just one step of making it a new habit. And it's not just, but it is one step of making it a new habit. But then the gift of all of it is the clarity and the focus, that if you have that, you can succeed on any level. But that's missing. It's people multitasking and thinking they're doing better because they're doing, I do better when I multitask. No one does better when they multitask.
It's impossible to multitask. It's impossible for a human being to multitask, and yet the culture encourages multitasking.
Right,
So
right.
what does multitasking really look like when we put it under the microscope? What it means is, in order for me to please the culture, to please my employer, who is asking me to multitask, my mind has to go very, very quickly between two objects. You see, human beings can only look at one thing at a time. And that's substantiated by the fact that human beings have created our child, the computer that we have created it in our image. And at any one point in space and time, even though the computer is very powerful, it only does one thing at a time. The computer always is looking at either 1 or 0, yes or no.
Perfect.
And yet, the culture is saying, oh, no, no, to be a success, to be healthy, to be happy, to be rewarded in life, you have to multitask. Well, in order for this mind to go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth between two objects very quickly to please the culture, to please my employer, how do I accomplish that? How does my mind accomplish that? One answer to that, and that is adrenaline has to surge throughout the entire mind and physiology so that the mind can go back and forth that quickly. And what is the result? The result is a depression of our immune system. The result is a depression of the mind.
Right.
However, as you correctly stated, the key to successful living, in addition to discipline, is one pointed attention, learning to focus all of our creative energy on one thing at a time. You know, if you take the image of a man or a woman who is cooking at a diner, they're a short order cook. They go very quickly. But the really, really proficient cook in that kind of a setting where it's very quickly paced, they have to be one pointed in their attention. So all of their attention is in this moment on the coffee so that it comes out hot. That it and in the next moment that person is focused on the eggs so that they're not broken when the fried eggs are made. and that the toast doesn't burn, and that all of the food comes out on the plate for the patron
Mhm.
of the restaurant at the same time. It's one pointed attention. And how does that work? How does one pointed attention work? It works because in order to discipline, again, that word, in order to discipline the ego, the senses, and unconscious mind, which are addicted to anarchy and noise all the time, clamor, in order to get buy-in from them, we have to train them slowly, slowly to focus the attention. When that occurs, a very pleasant experience happens. It creates a space between stimulus and response. And what does that space between stimulus and response provide us? It
Perfect.
provides us freedom of action to then redirect my one pointed attention inward to that intuitive library of wisdom, your conscience, that can reflect super conscious wisdom from the super conscious portion of the mind, which will then come into our conscious mind and tell us the thought to think, the word to speak, and the action to take that will always, always, always lead us for our highest and greatest good. And
Perfect.
in that process, I am constantly building the muscles of willpower to do what's to be done and not to do what's not to be done.
Perfect. And the heart then can help lead the way. Also, it's when you get to that still space, then that whole genius that's there, that is the essence of who you are. Which I want to ask if we can talk about. Okay, so I have an advanced review copy
Oh, good.
of this book that you sent me. You sent it to me. So, and a year, 2 years ago or something,
Yeah, about a year and a half ago. Yeah.
year and a half ago. Okay. So you say, and this is contemplate the question, who am I? And this is on page 88, 87 and 88 in the book. And it says, begin this practice by repeatedly asking yourself the question, who am I? During this contemplation, remember this. I have a body. I am aware of the body, but I am not the body. I have a mind. I'm aware of the mind, but I am not the mind. I have thoughts. I'm aware of thoughts, but I am not thoughts. I have desires. I'm aware of desires, but I am not desires. I have emotions. I am aware of emotions, but I am not emotions. Who then is aware of the body? Who is aware of the mind? Who is aware of the thoughts, desires, and emotions? Who is the thinker of every thought? Who is the experiencer of every experience? Who am I? I love this. So, do you want to share? I would love some insights from you because this is so powerful. The idea of the expansiveness of your perception that includes you and I talking, but also includes this whole other um, connection at a higher level. That's available for everyone. So could you talk a little bit about who am I and that whole awareness?
Well, when you change your perspective, you change your experience.
Yes.
When you change your perspective, you change your experience. So most human beings are addicted to believing that they are the body, they are the mind, they are this personality, and that's just not true. It's not true. It's not that we are not aware of them. We are aware of them. We have a relationship with them. And every time we have a relationship with a thought, with a desire, with an emotion, with another human being, with an animal, with a plant, with mineral, with the good earth herself, our mother. When we have a relationship, it requires an action, and every action brings about a consequence that can lead us in one direction toward the happiness, the health, the security that we all desire, or will delay the prospect. And instead, we will experience some form of dis-ease or pain.
Mm. Mm. So the okay, so I have to ask this because Lizzie asked this. Let's see. Okay, in my way of knowing, the point of focus is from within us in connection with the high self. What do you feel about that? So some teachers will say, don't call it higher or lower. But I think that perspective is much easier to understand than it's in this field. But could you speak to the focus
Sure.
is from within us?
Yes.
Thank you.
So everything based on our memory, from our earliest memories through and including today, everything that we have experienced is in the process or already has changed. The phenomenal world that we live in is constantly changing. And yet, in this sea of relativity, there is one thing that has always been true from our earliest memory through and including now within every human being. And that is, I am. Now, I might consider myself tall, but I know that I was short. So, am I the tall one or am I the short one? Who am I? Sometimes I'm angry. Sometimes I'm forgiving. So, who am I? Am I the angry one or the forgiving one? So, when we ask the question, who am I? What is going to come up are all these pairs of opposites: tall, short, heavy, thin, calm, stressed. You see.
Mm.
And when we are aware of these changing pairs of opposites, we let them go and we disidentify from them. And slowly, slowly, we realize that this I amness, this beingness, this awareness that is within me has always been true. And I would ask everybody who's listening, was there ever a moment when that I am that is within you was not true? I know for myself, it was true when I was short, and it's also true when I'm taller. When I was heavier, it was true when I'm thinner. It's true when I'm angry or forgiving, still it's true.
Wow.
See, it is the background of all reality. That's why Jesus, speaking as the Christ, this enlightened yoga scientist, Jesus, speaking as that sage, says, before Abraham was, I am.
Perfect.
So that I amness, that beingness, that awareness is our consciousness. It is at the core of our being, having this human experience through this mind, body, sense complex. Mhm.
Perfect.
And within that consciousness resides an intuitive library of wisdom that we can tap into if we direct our mind inward to the core and receive that perfect wisdom for the relationship that is waiting for us outside. Take that inner wisdom and convert it into the thoughts I think, the words I speak, and the actions I take. Then everything I need will come to me. just like a hot knife through butter. Not everything necessarily that the personality wants, but everything the personality needs.
Perfect. Perfect. So let's see. We've got another thing. Garris asked. It says, The I am is a stepping stone to we are." And I'd like to ask about that. Thank you, Garris. I'd like to ask you about that because I often say I'm in my little hologram of my reality. And the future is us all having a collective hologram that's much more kind and conscious and co-creative, basically, in my world, in my vision of life. And how do we get from this inner work, because it's very personal and it's not necessarily easy to explain, when the heart opens and when your whole system is open, there's a lot of processing and changing that has to be done. How do we get from that I am to we are, as far as you can see? Because that's what you've been doing for 30 years.
That's correct. Perhaps lifetimes.
Yes.
So, again, let me go back to language.
Okay.
Because language is so limited. They say that the greatest teaching is done in silence. So if you take a look at language, and I'm thinking of one particular word that students use a lot, they say, "I am alone. I am alone." And we know the connotation of that word in our culture, being separate, being alone. But I looked it up. I looked that word up to try to find the etymology of it, and I found it. It came into usage in the English language approximately in 1300.
Oh.
Yeah. And what was the original meaning to alone? It was all one.
Oh, wow.
That's right. Oh, wow. That's right. And what did the culture do? They made it two rather than all one. Then, if it's two, I feel alone. And if I feel alone, I am going to experience dis-ease and pain that will motivate me to try to rectify that hollowness. And what the culture then will say is, well, you buy this and you'll be happy. You buy this car, you'll be happy. You live in that house and you will be happy. And we follow that prompting because we're already pre-trained to do that. And
Yes.
that starts at the nursing experience. When we nurse at mama's breast, the little tiny newborn baby can't really see, but the light is blinding. And when the baby swallows, all of a sudden can taste. That's a strange, strange experience. And the sounds, they're much louder and boisterous and threatening, even small sounds, than mama's heart beating inside the womb. So what happens when we're born? Oh, there's tremendous dis-ease in the baby's awareness until the baby nurses at mama's breast. And when all of the baby's one-pointed attention goes down to mama's nipple to breastfeed, there's no more dis-ease.
Yeah.
Instead, there's bliss and fullness. And in that bliss and fullness of that experience, the baby makes his or her first ignorant conclusion. And what is that? I am a separate entity. And mama is a separate entity. And I'm not really sure where I am right now, but my experience is telling me that certain objects and certain relationships, like mama, can make me happy and take away my pain. And that creates a huge channel in the unconscious mind. And when I am weaned from mama's breast and I receive the bottle of milk, oh, that's wonderful. And the channel gets deeper. And when my uncle and aunt come over and give me a stuffed animal, oh, and I have a wonderful time playing with that, oh, the channel that tells me that objects and relationships in the world have some power to make me happy and eliminate my pain, that gets more and more powerful.
Wow.
And I become less and less connected to my true power and my true creativity that is within me, that is consciousness having this human experience. So there's no balance. What we're lacking in this world is a balance between this inner, intuitive, feminine wisdom and the external, male oriented action in the world. This is beyond gender. It has nothing to do with gender. It's just that the feminine is that inwardly directed, intuitive, and the masculine paradigm is the outwardly directed doingness in the world. So far, humanity is addicted to the doingness in the world, looking for happiness without going within to receive the wisdom that we need to know which way to turn at the intersection.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like driving an automobile that only turns in one direction.
Okay, so alone is survival. It's a survival first chakra response of being alone could mean in past in our human history that has meant you might not survive if you were with
Okay, self-preservation is full
yes.
bore. That fountain of food of self-preservation, fear is dramatically open. That's right. Yeah.
Well, do you see it now? Okay, so you've been doing this for 30 years, and there's been type A people like doctors that have worked with you, and you've seen the results. And we'll talk a little bit about that and about your workshop and everything. But I wanted to get an idea of the times we're in from your perspective, because I'm seeing us going through the dark ages. This is my little world. Going through the dark ages, and we have to see it, and then we can go to the Renaissance. So, no, you don't see it that way? Okay, so could you share how you see it? Because I'm seeing, I think more people are meditating. I think more people, there's, at least in my world, I'm seeing a lot of movement towards consciousness. I know you have on that press release that I grabbed, it said 99.5% of humans are not conscious. So could you talk, is that our era that we're in, or is that just
No,
this
it's human condition.
Oh, it's a human condition. Okay. So could we talk about what we're going to do about that?
Well, that's the key, isn't it? What are we going to do about it? Do we really want to do something about it? Because
Yes.
if I want to do something about it, even in the midst of the dark ages, in the present moment, I can be living in the Renaissance.
Yes.
I
Yes.
need just to serve my inner wisdom. And in the process, I am creating a counter culture.
Right.
I'm
Right.
not out to convince anybody. I'm just out to what? Experience happiness,
Right.
health, and security, and to be of service to whoever or whatever I may be of service to.
Right. Me too. Okay. So the present moment, that's a great conversation. I believe this reality is all filled of sequential present moments. Do you agree with that?
According to the mind and the brain, yes.
Oh, okay. So
But,
according to,
but it's all one. You see, everything is in the Om, that first vibration of creation. Past, present, and future are all now.
right, right. I know, but that's a little hard to
But yeah,
perceive.
the mind can't grab that, so it creates this linear template so that we can order thoughts, and
Okay. Well,
that's the past and that's the future.
so do you, I know you probably believe, I don't know this for a fact, but do you believe in reincarnation?
Yes,
Okay. So do you believe that all of those lives are happening all at the same time?
on some level, yes.
Ooh, okay. And then
But but we are living in duality, you see, and we have to honor that. So I have no time and no energy to fantasize about some kind of a quantum reality that uh, uh, is not mine to do. So I am born. This is my karma. My karma uh, brought me into this body, into time and space. That's the game that I'm playing right now. Though these are the rules. So we have to, Jesus says, render unto Caesar that which is Caesar's. Uh, and so, yes, I'm playing the game. I'm in duality.
yeah,
I'm a separate human being, right?
okay.
However, I know the truth. And to the best of my ability, I attempt to parent this mind body sense complex that has been brainwashed into being a feeling of aloneness, into recognizing that everything is one. And if everything is one, it means that I'm to love my neighbor as myself because my neighbor is myself, even though my neighbor has a different body, a different mind, a different personality, and a different set of habit patterns than the quote unquote Leonard does.
Right. Well, the gift of meditation is when you go to that still space, all of the everything seems to make sense,
Mhm.
and you are not alone. You are you are God. You are connected to God, source, whatever word people want to use, and that refreshing reminder can really change the way you deal with stress, with everything in your life. And for I'm highly sensitive, so I feel the global consciousness of fear. I feel the conflict and the positioning. That I don't know if it was always like this, and just the internet's allowing us to see it more clearly, or if because there's 8 billion of us now, um, that it's really dominant. But I will wake up sometimes in the morning and go like, what's going on in the world? I can just feel the fear. So can we talk a little bit about, because I'd love to show your website and talk about your course and talk about, but first, you mentioned something about the doctors, and you have that poster behind you. Um, do you want to talk, because before we came on, you shared about the class and the effect the doctors had. Do you want to share a little bit about that, and then I'll put up the website?
Okay, that's very nice.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Well, as I mentioned earlier, that part of our mission is to help physicians, help healthcare workers. And for the past 12 years, we have held an annual conference for healthcare providers and physicians and teaching them this AMI meditation curriculum that is also taught in a 6-week format year round online now. And this teaching between 2017 and 2020 uh, was evaluated in a clinical study to determine the efficacy of this teaching. And the results just were published in Lifestyle Medicine magazine by the American College of Lifestyle Medicine. And the findings were dramatic. Within 6 months, the participants experienced a reduction in burnout by almost 24%.
Wow, that's great.
They reduced stress by 20%. They increased their capacity to be compassionate with others by 11.2%. So now we have the science behind us. It's a small study. We're not disrespectful of that, but it's something that is proven by a peer review of physicians and published by Lifestyle Medicine. So it's a game changer.
Yes.
It's not just Leonard telling you, oh, this will make you feel better. No, we have science behind it now.
Right.
And that is such a blessing.
Well, it bridges the gap between science and spirituality. And that's really a big part of this evolution of our species, in my view, is that that's why I was calling it the Dark Ages going to the Renaissance, because I think that when we broke out science from spirituality and separated them, we did a disservice to us all. And what you're doing is bringing it back and bringing a logical mind bridge to it. So
let me just parenthetically note,
okay,
honoring someone that has been a big influence on me. The man's name was Sir William Osler. He was one of the founders of Johns Hopkins, and he was also known as the father of modern medicine. And there's a wonderful quote that is attributed to him. And Dr. Osler said, "Do not ask what kind of disease the patient has. Ask what kind of patient has the disease."
Oh, beautiful.
It's all about the mind. It's all the body is in the mind. All the body is a projection of the mind.
So before we go to the website, how would you define soul as far as compared to mind? Because there's so many, I do a lot of work with the near-death experiencers, and it's so fascinating to me how each person's perspective, it's not just their cultural religious views that changed their experience when they went to the other side and came back, but their interpretation of their essence is so different. Could you share a little bit about your perspective of what soul is compared to mind?
Of course, it's virtually impossible to define something like that, but let me share a couple of thoughts. In the tradition from which I teach, which is the oldest continuous meditation, spiritual, and mind-body medicine lineage in the world, over 6,000 years old, it is believed that we, each of us, are a citizen of two worlds. Yes, we are this mind-body sense complex, but subtler than that, at the core of our being, what religionists refer to as our soul, the core of who we are, has three general characteristics. First, that core within us is eternal. It was never born. It will never die. It is self-existent. It is not dependent on anything else for its existence. Second characteristic, is this eternal being is consciousness, is awareness. And within consciousness resides an intuitive library of wisdom, the super conscious portion of the mind that contains super conscious wisdom beyond the conscious mind, beyond the unconscious mind, to know what's to be done and what's not to be done. The third characteristic of this, as you termed it, soul, is the nature of consciousness is bliss and fullness. So it is three qualities in one: eternal, consciousness, wisdom, bliss, and fullness, having a human experience in time and space through a mind, body, sense complex.
Thank you. I thought you were going to say you couldn't define it because it's undefinable, but that was fantastic. The term, instead of bliss, that I've heard is more, or I've experienced, is that what we call unconditional love, but it's the same. It's the same grace.
Love is the most ancient traveler. The Beatles had it right. All there is love.
Yes.
But when I become deluded, my mind becomes deluded, I think that I am separate. That love force
Beautiful.
coming through the four primitive fountains affecting all animals: food, sex, sleep, self-preservation, those primitive fountains of all animals. When I am deluded and I believe I am separate from the whole, I feel that I am alone rather than all one. That love force, which is the most powerful force anywhere, changes into a desire for an object.
Ah.
And when that desire is blocked, that love force changes yet again into anger. And when that desire is fulfilled, that love force once again changes into fear that I might lose what I have, or the fear that I might not get what I want.
Wow. And is it like a waveform anyway? And the discipline is to keep controlling that mind, that waveform. So you talk about 0 point at all? A lot of people talk about that peaceful place that you can go from the polarity in the middle of the seesaw is the 0 point. Do you talk? That's kind of that's
Okay,
the portal.
So let's talk about a sine wave.
Yes.
You know, a sine wave goes up and down.
Uh-huh.
Okay? So the first rise of the sine wave is the positive charge. The trough at the other end is the negative charge.
Right.
Okay. So you have the positive charge, you have the negative charge of the sine wave. Engineers and scientists now can collapse both. They can collapse the positive charge toward the center of the wave.
Mm-hmm.
And they can collapse the negative charge toward the center line.
Right.
And when they can accomplish that, collapse the positive and the negative toward that midpoint, what do they create? Light. Light. That light is about balance. It's a balance of the positive and the negative, you see. At that midpoint, in fact, in medicine, it's homeostasis, but it's all about balance.
Right.
Humanity is very imbalanced right now.
Right. Right. So that is why it's so important for us to share about your classes and now that there's statistical proof for the people that need that proof, rather than just know it's time to do something better for themselves. I'm going to put on your website right now, share screen, so you can, should I start at the top?
Sure, that's fine. That's
Okay.
our I guess our homepage.
Yes. Share. There we go. So tell me when should I drive the page
Yeah,
down?
you can come down to our foundation course, the
Yeah.
AMI meditation, that now
Yes.
has a clinical study that says that it reduces burnout, stress, and increases compassion. Yeah.
Okay, here we go. Yes. So this is, all classes are now online, and view upcoming classes now. So there's a link on your front page of americanmeditation.org. And do you want to talk about both of your books real quick, with, as long as we're right here, and about the course?
Well, the course is contained in the book, The Heart and Science of Yoga.
Oh, okay.
When I first spoke today with you, I referenced the fact that I was told and instructed by my teacher to start teaching now. And I realized the only thing I could teach with authority was what I practiced. And what I practiced was I sat at the computer. It was the first time I ever had a computer. I knew nothing about computers. I became self-taught because I had a purpose, and I poured out what I did every day. And that became an outline that I shared with my students. And slowly, slowly, that outline grew, each of the 6 components. And at a certain point, I realized that I needed to codify this teaching. And I did so in The Heart and Science of Yoga, which became this book that is the curriculum of AMI meditation.
Beautiful. So so yoga as a physical practice. So basically, what we're talking about is embodiment. This is awareness and using the body as the vehicle. Yay! How wonderful. So we've already talked about some of the results, but could you, because you've been teaching this for so long, could you share either your results of you, because you learn every time you teach, either results that you may have had from doing this, or some of the students' results, just real quick. I want people to understand that this discipline is very worth it. The what do you have to lose but to try it anyway?
Well, for me, it's been just a delight and a constant surprise at every turn. It's just been a wonderful, wonderfully rewarding journey. I feel better today, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. I have more energy and I'm not a kid anymore. I feel that I'm more creative than I have ever been. But in the process, I have given up some things. I have given up certain kinds of food. I do no longer eat food that I love. I eat food exclusively now that loves me, that loves my brain, that loves my eyes, that loves my heart, that loves my kidneys and my liver and my joints and my glands and my muscles. And over the time, this is the food that I now really love. It's a symbiotic relationship. We're all in service. The food is in service to me, and I am in service to whatever relationships appear.
So do you find that uh, there's a little bit of leeway in the teachings, or do you have to stay very, 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 do you have to adhere to all of it in order to get results? Or can you even do, so let's say I don't want to change my diet, but I want to follow the meditation and learn breathing and movement. If I just do part of it, will I get a good result?
The highest principle of this teaching is a Sanskrit word known as ahimsa. It means non-injury, non-harming. And that requires that for every student to not take on too much too soon. Wherever you are at is the perfect place.
Oh.
Slowly, slowly. So continue to do whatever you do, but I'm not saying that at a certain point you might not lose a desire for certain kinds of foods. And then you will change your diet.
I
But
understand.
until then, hey, it's not an issue.
Yes. Okay. So we'll have to do this again because thank you so much. This was wonderful. And I really feel
It's
like
always a pleasure being with you.
I gained a lot. So Leonard, want to make sure I've been putting the banner up so people can know how to reach you and where your website is. But could you tell everybody again so that make sure that they hear it from you, the best ways to reach you?
Sure. Our website is americanmeditation.org, americanmeditation.org, and you'll be able to receive an email there. And we have a free guided meditation every Sunday morning, Eastern Time, from 9:30 to 11, and you receive the very next day a free recording so that you can have it during the week. It's a free guided meditation and a free conversation after the meditation, just like you and I, Kathy, are sharing right now.
This is wonderful. Yes, this is wonderful because as you go through this journey, everything becomes a question. I thought at 20 years old, I knew everything.
Oh, I knew everything at 13.
I didn't. I definitely didn't. But
That's the chronic creation, right? But I tell people that if I had the same software package, the mental software package, when I was 13, when I knew everything, I would really be either deathly ill or would have passed
oh,
the world a long time ago.
yeah. No, well, there's something about those years of hormonal activity that creates a defiance that we're going to make the world a better place in spite of itself. And but that's why I laugh is that I feel that your kind guidance is such a gift. Thank you so much for what you do. And this is a recipe in my toolkit for success for everyone, to know about Leonard and to participate. Just check out his free meditations on Sundays and get his books, and you'll see if he's your teacher. But you can see Leonard's in service. This is his dharma. This is his service, his gift, and he has given it freely. And I just want to honor that so much because I know what that means. And I know that it's going to only expand consciousness on earth. So thank you so much. And thank you for empowering so many people with the gift of themselves.
So thank you very much for this opportunity.
Oh, yes. I'm sorry our time's up. We'll have to do this again.
Hey, that's good.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.